She was texting me and emailing me last night.
Me too.
And this morning, I'm on the train at 6 a.m. We're very involved in this. We love community development work. We sort of oriented ourselves around stormwater and transitioned into more community planning type work, green infrastructure, sustainability, and it's really been a good partnership, an exciting one. So I wear a couple of hats. I sit on a couple of committees with Nancy for Chicago Wilderness, for their green infrastructure, the sustainability groups. We do a lot of that kind of stuff with them. I also sit on what's called the Alliance for Regional Development, which is a pretty big initiative that I'm going to try to bring Val and Veronica a little bit more into, but it's looking at the whole southern Lake Michigan Basin and saying, why are we lagging? And when I say that, I mean from Milwaukee over here, why are we lagging behind the rest of the country? For a long time, we've really been behind the curve in terms of growth economically. So when we look around, we say there are no jobs. That's really, the data supports that. I mean, it's not just pockets of areas, it's the whole region is really still kind of dragging its feet. And so the OECD came up from Paris and was commissioned to do a big study, and they eventually developed this nonprofit called the Alliance for Regional Development. And one of the keys to growth that the OECD, international big organization, said we need is green jobs. We need to look at green seriously. Sustainability was one of the 5 areas that they outlined. They could have outlined anything, and that's one of them. So I kind of head up that team. So this really fits into a lot of things that we do from a volunteer standpoint. Nancy, I don't know, do you want to give more of an introduction of yourself? All right. So, as I say, I have a long, long history here. I was born here. Technically, I was born on Michael Reese, but the next day we were down here. Lived in this building. Does everybody know what that building is? Yep. Lived in there until I was about 3 or 4, and then we had my brother, and we moved to a bigger apartment in Hyde Park, what Kenwood really. Sorry, you. But my father and my mother, the reason we lived here, were both community organizers here for a long time. My dad worked with the city, my sister worked with, my mom worked with some other commission, and I'm spacing the name of it right now. But very, very committed and interested and engaged in this community. So it's exciting for me to be back here. Next. So as we say, we're going to fly through this. You all know you got a lot of assets. You got great buildings still. They need a little TLC. The streets need a little TLC. And we need a vision, and we need some direction for that. But that needs to be community-driven so that we can take that to the city and the state and the federal government and say, hey, pay attention here. Even the private sector is really the key. But we want to be sensitive to the residents who are here. So, you know, one of the things we keep hearing is lakeside development's coming in. This is a big, tons and tons of money getting poured into this facility. Lots of money over decades now have been put into that area. And how does the community benefit from it? And how do we avoid being damaged by it? Both things could happen. Big Marsh is happening. That's being constructed. So there's going to be a lot of activity just to the south of here. That's going to benefit the community. But you want, if you've got children here, how do they get to it? How do they utilize the asset? It's not obvious. For environmental learning. What's that? No, it's going to have, is anybody familiar with everything that's going on there?
No. Where is
Oh, they're going to have a big mountain biking park down there. It'll be the only one in the region.
Where?
Just south of here. Yeah.
116,000 tourists.
116th Street?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're going to have a mountain biking park. DNR's captured a lot of the land there. I mean, the city is really, and the state are both activating that area. And that's going to be a real draw because there's nothing like that anywhere in the region. So you're going to...
Where south it is?
Yeah, we could show you on the map when we get to the map.
Right.
Go to the map and we'll talk a little bit more about that.
And you can't leave.
And then,
One more question, Eric. Is the primary purpose of that as a retention pool for runoff from Lakeside?
now, the primary purpose of what they're doing down there is ecological restoration and then activity, recreation.
Recreation. And I just want to just put a 2-cent in. This is, as we go through this, if you are sitting here today and all of a sudden recreation is your thing, I want you to jump on that. I'm bringing this so you can see what part of this workshop, Wet Your Whistle. This eco recreation, I mean, we don't even know that this is going to happen minutes from us. Who's going to be involved? Who's going to have those jobs? What kind of recreation? Are our kids going to be engaged? Are we going to be engaged? So if this all of a sudden gets to be your piece, I want to hear about that. Nancy wants to hear about that. Eric, so that you go back, you're sitting here, you're a block club, you have your own for-profit or not-for-profit, whatever. Everything today, if it wets your whistle, jump on it, talk about it. And this is why I wanted to bring this. I'm so glad for the questions. I don't want to keep interrupting you, but I want people to know what's happening right around us.
And we want your specific questions too, so hit me up, we'll find answers for you. If you're worried about the stormwater there, I need to find.
Right, we have somebody here from the Bungalow Association. Where's she? Okay, right here, representing. Oh, great. Friends of the Park is here too? Awesome, cool, great.
So this is also the Port Environmental Learning Center. Is everybody familiar with that? Does anybody not know that?
Then we gotta get information.
Is that actually being built?
Also very close, they're doing a feasibility study and it's been inching along. The recession kind of killed it, I think, for a little while. And now it's really coming back in a rapid way. Designed by Jeannie Gang, very famous architect.
You were in their way.
What's it?
The Ford Environmental Learning Center
Well, and where is it located?
in Hegwish Marsh, so not too far from Big Marsh, in that same area.
In
The
other words,
Calsac Trail will
Yes.
connect this, you will be able to ride a bicycle from here within probably about a year, all the way out to Lamont, all the way along the Calsac Trail into Palos Heights and that whole area. About a 21-mile bike ride. A lot of it through forest preserves that you're paying for, that we're all paying for with our tax dollars. So it's a nice amenity. But that'll change things because people will start to think, well, I can get to downtown from there. And, you've got to come through this area to get there. You can get to the beach now on a bike. The Millennium Reserve, is everybody familiar with that?
No.
Good. I mean, that's fine if you're not. So the Millennium Reserve was something that came under the previous governor, and it's got enough legs that it's really sticky, but there was a real focus. We are standing in the Millennium Reserve. This was an idea to really take all the ecological assets, and Nancy will talk a little bit more about that, in the region. The densest concentration of threatened and endangered species is in this region. And say, hey, there's not enough jobs here. There's a lot of old open space that was developed or is a contaminated site or perceived contaminated site. There's a lot of demand for jobs. And really look at all this and start connecting the dots and using green as a way to start a conversation around that. And it's really taken off. It's DOTs, the Department of Transportation are involved, the DNRs are heavily involved, economic development's a key component of that. And again, you live in the middle of that. That's sort of how we ended up getting connected with Veronica, although my mom is close to hanging through some things that she does. So.
you see what mamas can make their children do?
Yeah. Be a good role model.
I just want to be, I don't want to embarrass him, but technically we can't afford it, okay? We can't, but his mama knows Hank, and the rest is history. So he's here. We don't have the $5,000, $6,000 to do this, but his mama told us.
Good, great question. So one of the things that came out
What
of
was
this,
the question?
are there going to be training for green jobs?
Yeah.
There are a couple of organizations. OAI Inc. is one that we work really closely with, and we've established what we call the Millennium Reserve Green Infrastructure Resiliency Program, in which they've created a separate social enterprise to create jobs around green infrastructure. So all this green infrastructure is going in, but it's got to be maintained. Most municipalities don't have strong expertise in that area, or they don't even want to do it because they'd rather just mow a lawn and keep moving. So we've decided, well, hey, let's go into communities where we install green infrastructure and actually create jobs and train people how to do this kind of work. And they could either work through the social enterprise, or they could ideally they would set up their own businesses to do the maintenance type of work. So it's kind of a neat, this stuff is really getting going. It's one thing I always say about green infrastructure when we get into it, I read a wide range of books, and one of the things I read was the first book on architecture and city planning, which was written by Vitruvius. Has everybody seen the Vitruvian Man? That Vitruvian Man is you see the picture that Da Vinci did, He's got he basically took what Vitruvius said would be the perfect form of a man and put it into a picture. Vitruvius came just before 0, so 80 BC was when he wrote. And he disparaged, I'm not an architect, so he disparaged architects. They're really difficult people to work with. But one of the things that he talks about is how they did streets, how they did contracting. We do stuff the same way they did then. This is pre-Jesus Christ. We did stuff really the same way. So this is...
Are you saying we're slow learners or what?
I'm saying we just haven't changed. And, my background was civil engineering, so I'm criticizing my own field, is that we haven't changed very much in terms of how we think of this stuff. So anyway, so there's more stuff. People are thinking about greening along the waterfronts here. Next slide. And then the Poland National Park, the monument, that's going to be a big game changer. And again, you're right, position between all of us. And then if you talk about the University of Chicago and the Loop, this location has a lot of things going for it. Okay, so establishing a vision, how do we do this? We're going to fly through this because this is a longer process. And if the Planning Coalition and others are interested in really doing a vision, but I do want to say, this is hard, what we're talking about. It's singles, it's doubles. Every once in a while you get a triple, every once in a while you get a home run. Lakeside's a home run, if it happens, but we got to capitalize on it. We got to follow up with a lot of things. The reason I always like this analogy is because we're talking about changing a community that's been struggling for a while. Oprah, who has all the money in the world, I think literally, I think she can get into our accounts, can't keep weight on. With all the trainers and dietitians and everything else, it's hard for somebody that successful with that much money, that driven, to keep weight off. Think about how hard it is to get all the people in a community to make an improvement. So there's some things we got to look at. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but there's a technical component, there's a financial, obviously, component, and there's a community component. And if you forget any one of these things, the projects usually don't work. Oftentimes the community component is forgotten. I think that's one of the things we're really trying to buoy up here today. There's been a lot of plans done, so we're not starting from scratch. People have been thinking about this stuff in the region. It hasn't necessarily trickled down into the community, but there are these resources that are done, that are valuable, that can be used, and that can be capitalized on for funding as we.
And that is a good study. You can get that from CMAP, the Go-To 2040 plan.
Did anybody participate in Go-To 2040?
Yes, and I was wondering if one of the recommendations might be that this community apply for local technical assistance.
Yes.
I think that'd be a great recommendation.
I've got
Oh,
that.
so that's exactly what we want to do.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that there would be people and groups and individuals here that will want to step up and take responsibility to make sure that those things happen in our community. Because we're in the books already, people, whether we participated or not. This is being distributed now throughout the Calumet region, and South Shore is all up in this. So the developers get this, community people have no idea, and this is why we end up with people buying up our community, because they know stuff we don't know.
If you Google Millennium Reserve, it'll come right up, all of the
Rainbow
information.
Beach is in there, the cultures, and all our assets are being talked about. But on the media, on the news, they show all the negative things. But this is what they write about, all of our assets, and we have plenty of them.
It's funny when you look at those plans, it's like, oh, South Shore has this. And
Oh,
this
the beach.
Oh, it's so wonderful. Everything's perfect. And it's almost like they skim over some communities that are struggling. Oh, they've got such good assets. We'll just keep moving on. And we'll just,
And they're taking tours already in South Shore. Those
Yes.
outsiders coming in here riding around.
We did a hike last week at the Lakeside Development with the National Park Service.
I was at one yesterday at the new Theaster Gates project on Stony Island. Just driving by, seeing people